I'd like to now invite someone who needs no introduction, one of the world's all-time great sportsmen, an old good friend of mine, and really glad that he's back in Cayman helping us out again to make this a great event. Just as a quick testimony to the kind of spirit Greg has, when I suggested maybe he'd like to come down, that it's an event that brings a lot of you great people here to the island, helps the island's image, and also tries to do some charity. He was right in there and happy to be a part of it. And he's that kind of person. I think if you've met him before, you'll see that, and hopefully you'll get to know that in listening to him today. The other part that we thought was particularly terrific about having Greg spend the time with us today is not only is he one of the world's great sportsmen, he's one of the most successful business athletes, and has done that not by accident, but through tremendous hard work and design. And I think his success in business and his global outreach and his business activities will have some very interesting and poignant lessons to share for you guys in terms of the investment climate and how that pertains to the business that you do day in and day out. So that was a long, non-long introduction. Greg? So, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everybody. Before you start some of the crazy questions that you've already lined up for me, I just want to thank everybody. I think especially want to thank Mike. A lot of you probably know him. A lot of you probably don't know him. But I've known this gentleman for 15 years, and in my business, when you have a connection and you have a relationship with somebody like Mike, it goes beyond friendship in a lot of ways. And I can remember walking around this golf course, starting to build this golf course through mangroves and surviving hurricanes and 4 feet of water, sitting right where you're all sitting here right now, for him to see the dream come out of the ground to where it is here today, and to be able to host the individuals that are here in this room, the people who make the world go around, is very, very special. It's an honor for me to be here. It doesn't take much to, if I have respect for somebody, to if they ask me a question to do something, I'm there. And I have a lot of respect for Mike. I have a lot of respect for what he's done in the world of business, and it's an honor to be here in front of everybody.
Thanks very much. I don't know what to say on that, so I'll move on before I start blushing. So I do want to get the chance today to talk about, your business success and how that's worked, but I think it'd probably be something I think the people here today would be interested in. Could you just, maybe we can start by talking a little bit about the golf before we move on, and maybe we could start off, if you could give me your view or give us your views, how's the game transitioned from the 70s, 80s to where we are today?
Well, it's been a huge change, like in anything, whether in the banking business or in the development business, it changes dramatically. I know in the golf business in my career, I've probably gone through 4 or 5 recessions. But one thing that I can say as a golfer, we are basically recession-proof. An actor or an athlete, a successful or high-end actor or athlete, no matter where you are in the world, you are recession-proof, because all you do is your passion is to perform at the peak of your level, whatever that sport is. So when I started playing the game in the 70s, everybody was laughing at me, because when I made $1 million for the first year, the most anybody had ever made on playing the game of golf, they looked at me and said, boy, that's ridiculous for any golfer to make $1 million a year. And now you look at it, and the golfers are making $10 million a year, maybe $11 million a year. In some of the, Tiger Woods has sent the benchmark exploding through the roof. But that can only happen because we have the prize money to play for. And that prize money can only come from corporate and television networks' involvement in the game of golf. In the 80s, we saw the boom starting to take place. Corporate America embraced the game of golf. Corporate America and global corporations embrace sport in general. Tennis is no different. Golf is no different. Soccer is no different. And that was really the reach of the media. If you were buying airtime at a golf tournament in South Florida, you were actually getting projected, and your corporation's image and title was getting projected on a global basis. That changed everything. That changed the economics of our game dramatically when you can actually send it out on a global basis. So, whether you're, Stefan and I were talking about it today, being the benefactors of that time period that we're in, the 80s and the 90s, where there was so much money thrown at athletes, it was kind of crazy, And so as times evolved, we're seeing a little bit of correction about that right now in our game. I'll give you an example. The US PGA Tour prize money, when I started playing, it doubled every 5 years. Now, who in any business wouldn't love to see their business double every 5 years? Well, you know, you're going to hit the glass ceiling sooner or later. And we got to a point where the players are playing for so much money now, you cannot justify going to a network and getting the networks to pay for the amount of money that you need to pay for it to sustain another double digit. Like, I think it's $385 million in prize money now. In a couple of years' time, how can you justify going to $760 million in prize money? You can't. So the powers to be on the PGA Tour had to make some adjust their business model, and they have today. But the players are still playing for an extreme amount of prize money, 1.2 million first prize, 1.4 million first prize, depending on the tournament. So the game of golf has really established itself on a global basis. And really, like I go back to the beginning, it was no different in the 70s, no different in the 80s, no different in the 90s. It was just all relative to the era you're in. And if you're the best player in the world in any era, you're always going to capitalize and do better than anybody else, because, you know, at the time it sounded like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It was a lot of money, and it is today.
Well, let's talk about it. And I think the crowd here particularly understands that when you bring that kind of reward, when you bring that kind of money, you attract a great talent pool. I mean, talent's one of the big things people focus on. In the time that you were in the game of golf with that kind of growth in the prize money, did you see a change in the players, the quality of the talent, the way they were approaching it? How did people adapt, and how did you stay on top during that period?
That's a great question. I mean, nowadays, players that comparable to where I was positioned in the world rankings now have an entourage. I mean, a true entourage. You have your management company. Some of them guys have individual managers. You have your nutritionist, you have your masseuse, you have your trainer, you have your coach, and you have your support team. I think it's fantastic. I think every CEO, every president of the United States has a great support team around you. That allows that individual to focus purely on making the right decisions, executing, practicing, doing all the things you need to do to perform at the peak of your level, whether it's being an athlete or whether it's being a president or whether it's being a CEO. In my day, it was frowned upon to walk around. When Jack Nicklaus was at his best, he had a coach, and it was frowned upon when he was flying around in a private jet. And the same thing happened to me as an international player when I came to the United States. I came in, I had a coach, of course, and I was the first guy to have a trainer, a full-time trainer in 1991. And now everybody's in a different world. So I think it just depends on, your mentality and the people around you to structure the right structure for you to perform well. And if you don't know, you don't know. And nowadays, if I had to go back and do it again, no question, would I have a stronger entourage around me, and would that improve my performance? I have no idea. I think I would have become a better player. There's no question about it. But the key person I would have had would have been a full-time masseuse. There's no question. There's no question. There's no better feeling than coming home and getting that that body rubbed down after a long day. And golf is everybody thinks golf's a pretty mundane, easy sport. If you hit, they've calculated I've hit 4.5 million golf balls in my career. And when you hit up to 1,000 golf balls a day, your body pays the price, even though you're not running back and forth on a tennis court or running track and field or anything like that. You do get beaten up pretty good. So a masseuse would have been my number one choice.
So you're saying that to all the ladies and gentlemen out here who run these major companies and have a lot of pressures, that you'd recommend they all get an individual masseuse at home?
They probably do anyway. So, when they go to those board meetings, I don't know, but I think it's crucial for working out is crucial for you. I still work out 2 hours a day, maybe 3-4 days a week, not like I used to, but it cleanses your body. And when you're lying on a massage table, it gives you the time just to float away and focus on your weaknesses of your joints and the tightness of your muscles. So. To me, as an athlete, that would have been a huge asset for me. I know I would have played better golf if I had one.
Well, just staying that for 1 second before we move on to another topic, you were one of the first players to really take fitness seriously. Your workout regime were well known. People in the game today have followed that as much fitter. Has it changed the game? Do the courses need to adapt?
How has that really affected what's going on today?
You know, I think that's a combination of technology. Technology just not in the hard goods side of business, like golf clubs, golf balls, shafts, but also technology in what we do with agronomy on the grass you're sitting right here, this past Parliament. Technology and how we've learned to manicure, maintain, and with fertilizers, and that's also helped the distance we hit the golf ball. And then, of course, the players and their strength and flexibility. You can have strength, but if you don't apply it with flexibility, then you're not going to hit the ball any further than what you really have. The players today are extremely in tune with their proprioception. They understand exactly where their body is in any moment during their time in the golf swing. And that all comes from strength and flexibility. Their workout routines are phenomenal. There's very, very few that do not work out. I know that, and you know, I actually was the first guy who designed a fitness trailer for the PGA Tour. I was that passionate about it, and it took a long time for the momentum to build up because I was the only one in that trailer when it was out there. Now I think there's 3 trailers on the tour, and there's a masseuse trailer on the tour. So there's really a huge focus for the constituents to be able to get out there and do what they need to do with their body. And U.S. Tour is no different than the European Tour, no different than any other tour. They're all followed suit.
So all that we're talking about in terms of that is about, you know, getting the best possible performance, getting an edge, competing, winning. There's big stakes at hand. You know, a lot of this conference is around regulation and trying to have a level playing field for everybody. Let me just sort of step sideways for a second and ask your view. When people have that much to compete for, they start cutting corners, they want an unfair advantage. You know, the big elephant in the room is drugs in sport.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and does it happen on the golf course?
Well, in my personal opinion, I can't say whether it's absolutely proven. I know the PGA Tour does drug testing. I know that a couple of guys have been caught for recreational drugs. But nobody's been called for performance-enhancing drugs. But there was enough notice given to everybody. There was almost a 12-month lead time. This is when the drug testing is going to start. It actually was the month after the U.S. Open was the Torrey Pines, one that Tiger Woods won last. They said that's when it's all going to start. So we got 12 months notice. But I do know that from my experiences being a player out there, you do see differences in players. You see them on the golf course and you see them in private life, and there is a bit of an adjustment. There is a difference. And it's not really performance-enhancing drugs. There's a lot of speculation for the last 25 years that some of the top players have used like beta blockers where it calms you down and just gets, when you get super fast greens and your nerves get a little bit twitchy, those beta blockers really help you. And there's been speculation about those type of drugs being used. There's no, and the sad part about it, in our regulations on the PGA Tour, any tour around the world back in those days, there wasn't anything in our regulations saying you could not use them. It was just frowned upon to think that you would use a performance-enhancing drug to get better out of the game of golf. So you really can't fault them if they did do it because they wanted to get the maximum performance they could out of it. But nowadays, you cannot use it, so we've seen a difference in some of the players, no question about it. And if I mention a couple of players to you, you could go back over the last couple of years and you could see the sequence of their performance. From the time when it came in to the time where they are today, they're basically different players. So, if you're in the game, if you know them, you're competing against them day in, day out, and you know their mannerisms and their attitudes and their personalities, you'll see the difference.
All right. Well, I think I don't want to go any deeper into that.
I really don't want to go any deeper.
But on a personal note, do you think it would help my game at all?
Hell no.
All right, yeah.
No, you are stuck with what you got, buddy. You are done.
So I can play and I can still pee in the cup after.
Oh yeah. You can. It might take you about 4 or 5 hours to pee in the cup, but you'll still pee in the cup.
Okay, probably time to move on from there. So, one topic I wanted to make sure we covered while you're here with this particular group is, and it's something they all deal with, creating a brand, the power of the brand. What does it mean? How do you enhance it, and how do you take it somewhere? Maybe I could ask you to start. What was your thinking? You've certainly been one of the most successful guys to create your own brand. How did you do it? sort of what's the starting point? We can walk through that a bit.
Mike, I think the hammer really hit me in the forehead when I was the #1 player in the world, and believe me, I never wanted to be the best player in the world. I just wanted to be the best person or the best player I could possibly be. But along the way, you get to learn a lot, and you get to learn the fact that you get leveraged, you get used by management companies. I was with the management company, and that management company owned the television rights. That management company controlled corporations and the sponsorship dollars came in. That management company would own the golf tournament that you would play in. That management company would control gate receipts. So the penny started to drop for me in about 1989, 1990, when I was asked to sign up to play these tournaments for 3 of the next 5 years or 3 of the next 4 years for ridiculous amounts of money, I must admit. But once they had my signature on the piece of paper, then they would go out and do that, because I was the #1 player in the world. Then they would go out and negotiate other players to come on the back of my contract. So they'd be making percentages off of those contracts. Once they got about 4 or 5 of the top 8 or 10 or 12 players in the world, then they would go to the networks. Then they would negotiate with the networks a television rights fee. That television rights fee, once it was established, then they would go to corporations saying, we've got X television, we've got X network, we're going to be televising this golf tournament on a global basis for the next 3 to 5 years. We're going to have these players that we've locked in. It's a no-brainer. And so you've really sold what you needed to sell off the back of the players. And so I started to realize this, that I would like to benefit from this, even though I was making a handsome appearance fee and making prize money on top of it. But if I didn't perform, I didn't get paid. So I asked for residuals. Logical, right? Movie actors, guys who are doing soap TV shows on networks, they get residuals all the time. Singers get residuals. So I was the first professional golfer to put his hand up and says, I want residuals for the Shell's Wonderful World of Golf or for any golf tournament I've ever played in. Well, that created a storm, big storm, because now all of a sudden you're not supposed to be asking for that. And then, I say, why? And then all of a sudden you tell them you're getting appearance money when it's illegal to get paid appearance money on the PGA Tour. Then all of a sudden now Pandora's box opens up. So, of course, I didn't get any of the residuals. They shut me down on that. And then I started to learn, okay, if I want to be treated as a pass-through entity, which I was with the management company, they're going to get their revenue from their percentage, then once I'm done, there's going to be another Greg Norman or somebody else coming along that they can do exactly the same thing. So I decided in 1991-92 not to re-sign my contract with that management company, and I decided to put value in my own brand. And it was an amazing situation happened to me. I actually made more money the first year when I left my management company than I was in my final year with my management company, because corporations would rather deal directly with the principal, and then instead of going through an agent or a middleman, because things always got left a little foggy sometimes. And so when they knew that I was an independent guy, I was looking after myself, the revenue started to increase. And then when they started to increase, then I started realizing that I had a little bit of a brand recognition. And that brand recognition came with Paul Fireman, who owned Reebok at the time. I represented Reebok, and he wanted to start Greg Norman Collection clothing line. He gave me the logo. He said, this is your logo. You own this logo forever and a day. I'm going to license it off you. And so he taught me a lot about licensing, marketing, branding, and that was really where it all started in 1991. And I invested in my own career, shut down the management company and paid them off as much as I could, because they still wanted their commission going on any contract that was going out for another 3 or 4 or 5 years. So that became a bit of a sticky little wicket there to play on. But and here we are today. I completely understood what it was like to build value in your own brand.
Well, and this was right in the height of your playing career. You got a lot of other stuff going on, but you obviously had a game plan, and you seem to approach it strategically. I know you mentioned to me before that, you looked at what Jack did and what Arnold did, and then when you approached business and said, look, I got a life beyond golf, I need to find some mentors. Who are some of the other people you reached out and, helped you learn about the business and helped you figure out how to protect that brand as you built it?
But one of my big fans I loved a lot was Roger Penske, Penske Trucks. He was really in the race car business, and not really as successful in that race car business, but he understood what it was like. He was street smart. He got what the consumer wanted. He understood what they were looking for. And I got a lot of, I picked his brain a lot many years ago, went to a lot of events with him, and I learned one of the things that I taught myself was never be afraid to ask somebody a question. If you want the right answer, whether it's good or bad, don't be afraid to ask the question. So I went through that way, and I've been very lucky to have the ear of a lot of very successful people and leaders of the free world in a lot of ways, to be able to ask them, why did you make that mistake, or what would you do differently? And you heard President Bush last night ask the president of China, what keeps him up at nighttime. And it's interesting when you ask that question to some of the individuals, what does keep you up at nighttime, what the answer really is. And it's no different. We're no different than any sports person. What keeps you up of a night is how you're going to perform the next day. Did I really do all my homework, and did I really commit myself to practice, and did I do my due diligence to make my next day's performance that much better than the day before? You're the only one who can answer the truth on that. And if you tell yourself, no, I didn't, then you're in for a hard day tomorrow. So, I was always a self-analyzing individual.
Oh, and you said right at the beginning of the talk that, one of the interesting things about athletes, sportsmen, famous celebrities is they're sort of, outside their own, not just counter-cyclical, they're outside of the cycle because of the way their revenue stream works. But, you've branched out from early on. You've been in the equipment side, golf course design. You talked a moment ago about the clothing. How have you, as you're trying to protect and maintain your brand, feel that now you're with the rest of us who have to be through these economic cycles? Well,
fortunately for me, one of my business that I do is golf course design business. Some of you may have experienced the golf course back here. It's a pretty easy golf course, isn't it? Yeah? No? Okay. It's a pretty easy golf course, but business is really an economic indicator. One of the guys, my senior vice president of one of my design companies with us, Jason McCoy, and back in 2007, when we sensed something was taking place, our account receivables went through the roof. And you knew something was taking place then. That was more here in the United States than anywhere else. So you knew there was something on the horizon. Really couldn't put your finger on it. You really didn't know to what magnitude it was, and then all of a sudden things blow up. So, when you look at the golf course design business, to build a golf course or build a resort development like this, it's not a cheap undertaking. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So really, when you get the sense that things are starting to slow down, golf is going to be one of the first ones from an amenity standpoint to get nipped in the bud, because of the pure cost of building it and the ongoing cost. So, and then conversely, when the economy is raging, being the economic indicator, the phone never stops ringing. And you'll get, there's been times when we've had 85, I think, 83 or 85 golf courses under contract. And you think that's a crazy number, but that's a real number because the economy was booming and golf was a necessity. And now in the United States, it's totally different. Golf is languishing. The game of golf is in a negative trend, to say the least. I think last year, like 180 odd golf courses that was a negative opening, more closed than was opened. And we don't see anything changing in the near future. So we've had to change our business model in a lot of ways. Our business model focus in the United States right now is basically redoing golf courses. There's a slew of golf courses out there have been in operation for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And to go and redo those golf courses instead of building a new golf course is probably anywhere between 25, 30% of the overall cost to build. So there is a bit of a trend to go that way. There's an opportunity in its own right there where you can actually start up a fund because these municipal golf courses that don't have the capital to invest into their golf courses to redo them, they're looking for opportunities. And when you look at golf, Even at a public golf course, they're doing 55 to 60, 70,000 rounds a year, 55, 60 bucks, 35 bucks. The cash, the numbers, it's pretty easy to add up that you can go in there and redo a golf course if you have the right financial model with a fund, and you can actually go out there and do some business. So that's why I say you have to make these adjustments to your business model depending on the climate. And then opposite, there's pockets around the world that are extremely favorable to golf course design business. Vietnam, for example. Vietnam, the government of late in the last month said they would like to see another 70-odd golf courses built in that little country. We have 5 under contract right there right now, so you really have to chase it. And if you're not a global player, you're not going to be growing your business at all. And so there are China's under a moratorium right now. They're trying to understand the game of golf and what it's going to do to their agricultural zones. And obviously with this moratorium, everybody's sitting there trying to tread water. But China and golf are going to be like a symbiotic relationship in the long term, a lot like Stefan and I were talking today with a gentleman called Sven Tumba did in Sweden many, many years ago, a generation ago, brought the game of golf to the country. China, the game of golf is going to be into the country. It is there now. It's going to be a huge opportunity in the long term from residential development to hard goods, soft goods. Just bringing a brand into that country is going to be huge if the brand has some recognition. So China's a huge market. And then you look at the other 2 biggest countries, continents in the world, and one country, which is India. The development and interest in the game of golf in India is very, very high. And obviously South America. Since the Olympics got brought golf into the Olympics in 2016, we're seeing a huge spike in the third world countries with the interest of the game of golf. And I'm even talking places like in East Africa and some places in West Africa. You're talking about places in Central America and where Mike and I started 15 years ago in Costa Rica. You're seeing places like that will start turning around because of the interest of the game of golf, because it's been brought back into the Olympics, and it really needed it. So 2016 is going to be a very, very positive move and promotion for the game.
Excellent. Well, let me pick up on that and try to tie 2 things together. Certainly, and I've had the chance to visit a couple of your courses in Vietnam, which were spectacular. But one of the things that really surprised me, and maybe or was exciting about it, and maybe you can elaborate, is you talk about the brand and how it impacts there. On the development side, on that course in Da Nang, there was a very nice set of condos unbranded. Next door, slightly better, your branded product that had a 70% premium. Do you think the brands in what you do and possibly in other industries as you go into Asia, do they carry more weight than they do over here, or maybe like they used to do over here?
Yes, the answer to that question is absolutely yes. You could see a definite markup with the right type of brand and the right type of positioning of your product. You just can't go willy-nilly any place in the world and think you're going to have a markup of 25 or 35% just because of the brands in there. If you select your market correctly, you will do it. We've done it very successfully in, like you say, in Da Nang. We've done it in the Middle East and Dubai. Yes, the opportunity's there. And it's not like just putting your brand on a development or on a project. You're bringing a lot of sizzle with it. You're bringing a lot of expertise that the reach from a development standpoint, some of the marketing issues that we've learned and mistakes we've learned in the past to the things we've learned successfully. You apply those, and so the developer will make that uptick. He will make the money on it. So you can do it, and that's one of the things that I'm proud of the most, of being able to go to these different parts of the world, whether it's Australia or whether it's Vietnam or whether it's the Middle East or whether it's in Naples, Florida, to add this value into these developments has been a huge plus for me.
So that begs the follow-on question, which is, you've been successful in, 16, 20, 30 countries. How do you tackle the challenge that this same community has in their businesses? How do you find that right local partner? How do you navigate the unique politics and business practices in all those different places and come out the other side a winner?
Well, it's all about communication to me. I mean, everybody can get an introduction to somebody, and it's all a follow-up. To me, when you have, for example, just recently in Cannes, there was the duty-free show. And in the duty-free show, we introduced my new line of eyewear. And you get a lot of interest from a lot of different countries. That's great. It's a positive thing. But if you don't follow up the next 60 days, 90 days, all that interest disappears very, very quickly. Because your timelines, all these corporations, these buyers have got, and principals have this timeline to bringing product online. So if your follow-up falls behind, then you're going to fall behind. So, it's so important on, like, going back to that word I said in the beginning, is communication. Get it out there straight away and follow up. And then navigating. Going through China. I've been going to China. I did an exhibition match in China 20 years ago. I was the first guy to go in there with a couple of other guys to play the game of golf. And Johnny Walker sponsored the event. And for 22 years now, I've been going to that country, and it's only now do I feel like that I'm making headway. And it's really, and I'm sure there's a lot of gentlemen and ladies in this room here who deal with that, where it takes a lot. And it's fun trying to find the right person. Sometimes it's not the middle management individual. Sometimes you got to leapfrog them right up to the top. And to get to the top of anybody in the central government in China is not the easiest task. But one of the great connectors for me is the game of golf, and the game of golf's done that with me in China right now. The game of golf has done that with me with presidents of the United States. I've been very, very fortunate that my position in the game of golf has given me access to individuals such as that. So it gives you the confidence not to step back, but to go forward in life.
Well, excellent. And we talked a little bit earlier about how you had a plan, developed the brand, and it's expanded. I'm not sure if people are aware, but Great White Shark Enterprises now has, I think it's 16 companies. Mm-hmm. Maybe you'd elaborate a bit on that last question. As you've grown into those different areas, how did you approach it? Was it opportunities that came to you, or did you see them and go out and say, I'm going to create a new niche there for myself?
Well, first of all, I created all my businesses which were vertically integrated with the game of golf. Some are wholly owned, some are joint ventures, and some are licensed. So it depends on what the market's going to give you. If it's a wholly owned, then great. Now you've got to inject a lot of human resources and a lot of capital at it. If it's a joint venture, you've got to be careful how that joint venture partnership is established, because you want to have as much say as you possibly can in the long-term value of the brand and where they're trying to take the brand. For example, my beef business and my wine business, I have joint venture partnerships with two iconic companies. One being Beringer, or Treasury Wine Estates out of Australia, which does about 24 million cases a year. And the other one is AACO, Australian Agricultural Company, which is the oldest company in Australia, which is the biggest beef producer in the world. So I really have great partners who really know their business extremely well. So by me coming in as a brand, like with Treasury Wine Estates, they actually have very, very few recognizable brands. They're individual names, but they have very few brands, and they see the value in that branding. And when you look back over the period of time, I've been in the wine business 15 years, and I'm the only brand that survived 15 years.
Well, talking about that, this actually takes us back to when we first met. I think you taught a great lesson. I remember from the first time we talked about the wine, and it's a classic for everyone in this industry. You under-promised and over-delivered, because I remember you gave me your first bottle of Norman Estates, and I said, this is delicious, and it was $16 or whatever, and you say, yeah, our goal is to be the top wine in each price category. This is a $30 bottle we're selling for $16 to get our name out there, and it worked. It
worked. Our budget projections for the first year, we're going to do about 15 to 18,000 cases, and we did 110,000 cases the first year.
How much of those were yours personally?
They're all mine personally. But, that was just an exercise of doing what you're saying, over-deliver on the quality and under-deliver on the price, and we've kept it that way. And the quality of our wine has actually improved. We've got a lot of great ratings over the years. In 1998, we got voted #8 wine in the world, Reserve Shiraz, and obviously that's a great kicker into the next world. And, but again, it's everything I've done with my business. I've created a level or a benchmark, and I've never let myself slip below that. It's very easy to go out there and canvass the world and make a lot of fast money very, very quickly. But it's very difficult to keep yourself so focused and so on such a level where it's a long-term view. And I've always been a long-term strategist in a lot of ways, contrary to the way I played the game of golf. My approach to business is different the way I play the game. I was very impetuous when I played. I was very aggressive. I wanted it to happen now. I attacked everything. And in golf, in business, I see the opposite. I see it's a long-term approach. You build value into a brand, and it might be a 15, 20-year cycle. And I'm doing that right now. I mean, I think the world is connections that I've made through the game of golf and seeing what the economy is and small business in the United States. They can't get capital to run their businesses. I'm talking about these small micro companies that maybe doing about $1.5 million to $10 or $15 million a year. They can't get capital. And so I went out and invested in a few of these companies with my own money, and we're getting incredible returns on these investments. And I sat back with a friend of mine, and in my office I said, why don't we start a fund for these small companies? And most of them, the ones we've been involved with, have pretty much been in Florida and one up in New York. And all of a sudden now it's morphed out into something else because we've captured our own imagination by investing our own hard dollars into it initially to prove it up. And now that we've proven it up, we now can go out and say we can do this on successfully through a fund. And it's interesting how when you open up that door, how many people are asking questions about, can you do this or can you do that? And I'll give you an example. I mean, I got asked to go and to be involved with the Tanzanian government on some other project, which was completely tangential to anything I've ever done in my life. So all of a sudden, because of the position you've done, other opportunities open up. It's no different than anybody else out here. You've got to keep your door wide open and your mind wide open to availability and opportunities. And if they're there, take it. And if you don't want it, walk away. Jack Welch had a great saying, if you sell it, fix it, or shut it down. And if you can have one of those choices. So if you want to sell it, move on. If you want to fix it, you inject your capital in and you're in for the long haul. And so I'm having those opportunities right now.
But it sounds like, and you and I've talked about this a fair amount, and you said it earlier today, it's important that it all comes vertically out of the connection to golf and how those connections come. I know, you're doing some of the sort of more exotic, more sexy things, whether it's Tanzania or around the world, but at the same time, you've continued to keep an eye on whether it's the golf course design or the maintenance of turf. There's some other areas that you've been expanding into that are a little more prosaic but really help that base, and we're proud to have you be a part of that here as well. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
I mean, I've opened about 80 plus golf courses around the world, but I've also been involved with, through the game of golf and through the agronomy and management and the maintenance of golf courses. And to me, it's such a waste of money in a lot of ways that you do. When we build these golf courses and you have a budget, and how many people in the room here actually are members of golf clubs? Maybe 15, 20% of the people in the room here. So we get our annual dues, and those annual dues reflect the condition of the golf course. I've been around long enough to know when you play a professional golf tournament, it's not coming out of your annual dues, it's coming out of another budget, and that golf course is absolutely perfect for 1 week a year. And then it slips back to whatever happens the other 51 weeks a year, depends on the annual budget. So every golf course, as far as I'm concerned, should have its own fingerprint on how it is managed and the process of management. And it's through my experiences over all these years that we have seen a huge opportunity for a new business. And we've done that. And thank you to Mike. Mike's come on board and joined the family of us. It's called the Great White Shark Golf Course Management. And it allows us now to take our expertise in there. And each one is treated on an individual basis. Because I hate wasting money. It's one of those things that is my pet peeve in life, and if you have a chance of saving $1 and it's somebody else's dollar, fantastic. Treat everybody else's dollar like it's your dollar. You build a golf course, you give it a budget of $10 million, build it for 9.5 or 9.8, build it for 10, don't go and build it for 15 or $12 million. Because it's important that our ongoing costs in the game of golf and in business and any life and work of life have to be managed and maintained to the highest degree. And And that's what we're doing in our new management business.
Terrific. Well, we look forward. Greg's coming on board to work with us over, for those of you who are local, or if not, to work on the Dragon Bay North Sound Club next door, bringing in his company and working together as one of the first ventures to try and take that up to another level. So we're pretty excited about having you involved in that.
We are indeed.
So it's been great. There's an area I want to make sure we cover before we run out of time today, politics. And you mentioned before the game of golf is giving you a great platform to meet and connect in your business life. But I think it's also been an amazing opportunity for you to make a difference and do something in the world. And I wanted to ask you what it was like to do that and how you made it happen, and how you think people can use their brand or their platform to make a difference.
Look, touch on politics. It's interesting because I travel the world so much. I was in in Geneva just recently, and sat down with some bankers and talked, and then I'm in Switzerland, in Tanzania, and then I might be somewhere else in Jordan, then I might be in Oman. And it's interesting how the rest of the world looks at and asks questions about the United States right now. And it's the view of what you see in the United States and what you hear on television is sometimes different than what the reality is out there. And it's really sad in a lot of ways, because a lot of people look up to the United States and will always look up to the United States. And it was interesting listening to President Bush last night, and how true he is that, when you make a decision, you're making a decision, the right decision at that time. And it's not for you as a person, it's for you as a country. And so when you hear these people make some negative or disparaging remarks about the United States, wondering what is wrong with the United States, why can't they get their act together? Why do they dictate to other countries? And yet you heard their debt to GDP ratio last night is beyond everybody else's. So, but it's interesting how you hear those views. And sometimes I wish that these presidents would travel a little bit more, or send an entourage out there on an unannounced basis and just ask questions to the general public outside the United States, and get the views of what the rest of the world is really saying. Then they might have a different perspective on how things get operated. I know as you run a business, I know what you expect as you look out into the future. I don't run the business for today, you run the business for the future. You don't make the decisions for yourself, you make the decisions for your whole company, not just one part of the division. So it's the same as being the President of the United States or any leader of the free world. So, as a business person, I hope, next week, that there's a bit of a change takes place, because you got to breathe a little bit of life back into this country. You got to free up the capital. You got to free up the private sector market. You got to be able to allow the entrepreneurs, the Richard Bransons of the world, and to be able to go out there and take benefits of it. And the more they benefit out of it by growing and developing business from the private enterprises, then everybody else is the benefactor. So, you learn a lot from that. When I first was, I'm going to go a little bit of tangent about individuals and how you should never judge individuals. A few years ago, when President Clinton was in his first term in office, I get a phone call from the White House, and they said, Mr. President Clinton's going to be down in Australia on November the 27th, and he would like to play golf with you. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a Bill Clinton fan. I didn't like his politics or some of his policies, and I was a bit caught between a rock and a hard place, because I was just happened to be there. I don't know how he knew I was going to be there, but I just happened to be there on that very day. And so I called up President Bush, 41. And I said, Mr. President, I said, I'm a bit of a pickle here. I said, the White House had just called me, and they want me to play with President Clinton. And I really don't like him. I said, I really don't like what he says. I really don't like what he's doing with health care and all that stuff. He says, Greg, he said, I'm going to give you one piece of advice, son. He said, you respect the position of the President of the United States, and you go play with him. So with that piece of advice, I called up the White House. I said, look, I'm available. I'm playing a golf tournament. It's the Australian Open. I know I'm playing early Thursday morning. I can play with the President in the afternoon. Well, lo and behold, it all happens. Pixie dust gets thrown in the air, and the golf course gets shut down. He picks my favorite golf course I want to play, New South Wales Golf Club, and the whole golf course gets shut down. And we go out there and we tee off around 2:30 in the afternoon. Air Force One sitting at Sydney Airport, Hillary sitting on Air Force One, right? We get to the 14th hole, and all of a sudden, a relationship starts to, instead of talking about golf and general subjects, he stops, gets out of the golf cart, and he sits down on the turf and says, I want you to show me every exercise and every stretching exercise you do. And I look at him and I go, this is kind of weird, man. This is weird. What do I do here now, right? And the only other individuals there was my caddy, Tony Navarro, and all the Secret Service obviously were on every hilltop and every tree. And here's the President of the United States down on the ground, pulling his shirt out of his pants so he can do some stretches, right? And he gets a Secret Service person comes up and says, Mr. President, it's Hillary on the phone. And he's lying on the floor, answer the phone, and he says, I'll be there when I be there. Don't worry, we'll take off when I take off, right? So his wife is sitting on the plane, and he's sitting on the turf just having a good time. And I said to him right there and then, I said, Mr. President, I got to be honest with you. I said, when you first called me, I said, I didn't want to play golf with you. I said, because quite honestly, I didn't agree with some of the things you were doing in politics. I said, I'm going to fall on my sword here because I think you're one of the greatest guys I've ever met. And since that day, we've stayed completely good friends. And we, he'll tell me and he'll call me up. You remember the Tiger Woods situation where Tiger was going through a bit of a bad time? He would call me up and give me advice to try and call Tiger up to tell Tiger what to do. I said, whoa, Mr. President, I think that's crossing the line there. I said.
That's an interesting series of marital connections getting worked through.
So, but anyway, it taught me right there and then never prejudge somebody. Never prejudge them from what the media tells you, because a lot of people, when I played the game of golf in the United States here, probably didn't like my mannerisms and didn't like the way I played, being an international player. So you should never prejudge, and that was one of the most poignant moments in my life.
But you didn't just move on and become good friends. I mean, you did some pretty spectacular stuff and used your position in the middle to bring 41 and Bill together to do some incredible things. Yeah,
absolutely. The tsunami went through. Gosh, the name just went right in my head. Where the tsunami went? Phuket. That's right. I had this idea of raising money, as much money as we possibly can, just out of my golf club at the Medalist Golf Club in South Florida. So I called up President Clinton and I called up President Bush, and I said, I want you to, I knew right then they weren't never good friends, and I knew right then this would be a big undertaking. And I said, this is for relief. I said, 100% of every dollar that gets earned will be donated equally 50-50 to both of you for the tsunami relief program. Well, they both agreed. And I went to my members. We had 230 members, and I believe we raised about $2.5 million. And they flew down, and they played golf with my members, and it was pouring down rain that day. And both Presidents of the United States stayed the whole time. They gave a phenomenal Q&A discussion talk. And right there and then I knew that no matter what your political differences of views are, no matter how much you hate an individual or hate their beliefs, that for the common good, you can make it work. And you saw President Clinton. He came to the middle. He probably turned out to be one of the best presidents the United States has ever had, because he understood the value of coming to the middle and working with everybody. And to this day, he and President Bush 41 and President Clinton closest of friends, which tells you a lot. And I think President Bush 43 last night touched on that as well.
Well, fantastic. Well, look, I'd love to sit here and chat with you all day, but people have to get back to the conference. I want to thank you again for coming. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I also want to thank you for not telling the airplane story. I really appreciate it.
We'll save that for another day.
All right, well,
all right,
everybody,
thank you, Mike.
Round of applause for Greg. Thank you very
Thank
much.
You.